So, James, the European Commission's antitrust enforcers are looking into the fees charged by Visa and Mastercard, according to reporting by Bloomberg.
Really?
Of course, yeah. Now we know this isn't the first time that the card brands have found themselves in the hairs of European regulators. You know, there were a series of probes a little less than a decade ago that resulted in a $648 million fine against MasterCard and an agreement by both of the brands to lower the rates. I
Right.
think it was credit card was zero point 0.3 and debit interchange was capped at zero point 0.2.
Right. And I mean, to give our audience a little bit of context here, right? So we're talking again about Europe and their regulatory actions. And in the UK specifically, again, we're talking about, or I don't know if it's UK, but in the EU is like,
No, it's not the UK because the UK isn't part
is
of the
now out of the
European
EU.
Union.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Right,
But in the EU, it's 0.3% cap on credit card, no per item, just 0.3%,
right,
0.2% on debit. Now you compare that to the
right.
US, the average cost of interchange in the US is 1.8%, right? So
Right.
we're talking about a 5 to 7x the amount that
Mm-hmm.
the US merchants are paying versus what's being charged in the EU. So that's a really important piece of context for those that don't understand the cost of card acceptance in the US versus the rest of the world. And again, these are the same companies, Visa and Mastercard. These are the same
Same
issuing
kind of
banks.
right. Same kind of merchants. I
Right.
mean, so yeah. And also to put in the context, the European Commission is like the executive branch of the European Union.
Right.
So,
Right.
it's their antitrust people that are sending out
Right.
requests to market participants that,
Hmm.
asking information about fees. The questions are said to focus on whether retailers have a choice in accepting Visa and MasterCard payments, what kind of value retailers are getting for those fees, and how transparent the fees are.
Mm,
Uh, so,
sure. Interesting. Okay.
what's interesting is that the scrutiny follows comments by European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde. She said that the 27 member bloc needs to reduce its dependency on foreign payment providers
Wow.
and
That's really
suggested
interesting.
she pitched the rollout of a digital currency as a way to bolster sovereignty. I
Mm,
thought that was interesting. I had not heard about that before.
right.
I read
Mm,
this in Bloomberg, but yeah,
wow.
that
Very
that is
interesting.
very interesting.
Okay. All right. Well, there's one. What's our next one, Patty?
Okay, our next one. This is an interesting one too. Well, they're always interesting, but um, U.S. banks. A new survey finds that U.S. banks are behind the eight ball when it comes to providing instant payments to customers.
Mm,
A survey of 300 senior payments professionals at U.S. banks found nearly two-thirds of corporate bankers experience significant or overwhelming demand for instant payments from their corporate customers. Yet, at best, fewer than a third of U.S. banks have signed on for RTP or FedNow, which are the two instant payment networks that we have here in the country.
right.
Um, the survey found that better than half of bankers said they feel either significant or overwhelming demand for adoption from both corporate and retail customers.
Mm,
But here's the thing that I found really interesting. Red Compass is the company that did the survey. They said that the existence of Zelle, Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, and other wallet services has dampened U.S. banks' appetite for implementing instant payments.
mm,
Given that these apps have huge market share and offer near instant payments already, many banks see Zelle, which of course is the bank-owned network, as quote a good enough payment solution. Not surprisingly, though, of course, legacy systems are a big barrier to adoption.
right. Right. Mm,
But I thought
interesting.
that was interesting that they think that Zelle is good enough. I mean, yeah, Zelle is good enough for the retail, but I don't. If I were a corporate cash manager, I wouldn't want to be sending my
No.
money across Zelle.
Right. It's definitely not. It doesn't feel like Zelle was built for that purpose at all.
No,
So,
not at
yeah.
all. Not
Okay.
at all.
All right.
Okay,
What's our third one?
so FIS, which is a back-end tech, it's a fintech that provides back-end technology to community banks and credit unions.
Mm,
They've struck a really interesting partnership with Let's Skip Ltd, better known as KIP. to introduce an NSF authorization solution to client debit card issuers. Now, industry data shows that the leading cause of card declines at the point of sale is insufficient funds.
Right.
57% of card declines are said to be due to NSF.
Hmm.
U.S. banks alone lose $300 billion a year to these declines, according to Coin Law, which collects data on this kind of stuff.
Okay.
This new solution offers issuers the ability to approve transactions even when there is insufficient funds on deposit without imposing overdraft fees, with merchants voluntarily paying a premium to authorize those transactions.
Okay, wait. So say that again. So I'm trying to think through. So you're saying that
Okay, so
the merchant
I
pays the
go to the
premium?
point of they're going to pay a premium in addition to the interchange
Okay.
to approve these transactions so that they don't lose the sale. So, like, I go to your store,
Yeah.
I get declined, and your bank says, that's okay, go ahead, process it anyway. We'll pay you, $1.50 to process this anyway. And
Interesting. And the
isn't that
merchant,
interesting?
it's very interesting actually. But I'm trying to understand, would the merchant have a choice in like, is this just some new interchange category that's coming out, or is this saying like this is a service that
Mm-mm.
merchants can opt into, or like what is it exactly?
It's a service that merchants can opt into. They're
Very
referring to again as a reimagined economic model that can generate additional revenue for issuers and retain top of wallet status while helping to preserve the customer experience at the point of sale.
very
So
interesting.
yeah, I mean, I had trouble. It took me a while to wrap my head around this when I saw the press release because it was like, what?
And you
Retailers are
said
going to pay?
going back to the very beginning of this, who is rolling this
Uh-huh.
out? Is this a Visa
It's
thing or
FIS,
oh
FIS, which
FIS?
is
I
okay.
see.
So they do mostly community banks and credit unions, and
Oh,
they're working
okay.
with this company called KIP, which apparently um, has like a platform with retailers where it
Mm.
helps retailers. So it goes through the KIP platform.
And so then what
Um,
happens in that scenario for the consumer? You if you go in and you want to spend $100, you only have 20. So does your
right?
account now go into the negative? It goes to negative 80, but you don't have to pay an overdraft fee. Is that what's happening?
Yeah,
Wow, that's so interesting. And then I guess it just now it just becomes a negative balance, like it's a debt basically that you have to pay back.
right. So that you have to pay back.
Huh.
Now it may very well be that some banks will impose some sort of fee on the consumer.
Right, right. Yeah, if they have it, if they have it set
But
up for
they're
that.
already getting money they're already getting money from the merchant.
Right. Hmm. Wow.
So,
Okay. Very interesting.
yeah, I mean, isn't that an interesting? I've not heard of anything like this before, but
Yeah,
and it's
it doesn't sound to me like they've productized it completely yet. It's like, I still don't, it's like they still need to kind of, you know, communicate further like what is this product? Who or how do the merchants opt in to be able to do this and how
right,
does it work for the
right.
consumer? And there's definitely a lot of unanswered questions, but I mean, that would be huge. Obviously, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think it's a huge opportunity for issuer banks and for merchants.
Yeah. Interesting.
Um, and a nice source of income.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's a very interesting one. Keep us up to date on that one, Patty, for sure. And then I think you have one more for us today, don't you?
One more, and this is interesting. Block has announced that it is readying a scheme that lets merchants accept Bitcoin payments directly through their Square hardware. The rollout is
Oh,
expected to begin later sometime in the second half of the year and reach all eligible Square sellers in 2026. Of course, subject to applicable regulatory approvals.
of course. Yeah. But
Uh,
that's a big announcement. And that was kind of inevitable. I feel like they've been moving in that direction for a while anyway,
yeah, and it kind of builds upon that Bitcoin conversion feature that they launched back in 2024, where
Right.
qualified merchants could convert a portion of their daily sales to Bitcoin.
Right. Right.
Um, and it makes it really easy for customers. All they have to do is scan a QR code at the checkout, and
Right.
the network enables the near instant settlement while Square's integration handles all the complexity behind the scenes, including
Right.
real-time rate exchange.
Hmm. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So it's
That's pretty cool, actually.
yeah, yeah.
It'd
I
be
thought that was very cool.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting to me, the whole Bitcoin thing, right? Because it's like, I have conversations with people about this all the time as far as, is crypto eventually going to make good on its underlying like core promise of, anonymity, which has never really quite been a thing. I mean, with it because of the
Right.
regulations and all of that. And the other thing is the cost and immediacy of it. It's like, well, it's not really free. There are still costs to convert it back to fiat currency.
Right.
So I think there's still a few things that have to happen. I think we have to, for one thing, we have to get to a point to where people are willing to carry Bitcoin as a currency that they're going to keep, not that they need to convert in and out of
Right.
fiat. It almost needs to become its
Right.
own kind of fiat, currency. Or again, with stable coin, I know that's in the works as well of thinking of ways to do that better. But I think once people are willing to carry it and they're not always trying to convert it back and forth into fiat, then it's going to be a little bit more viable. But in order to do that, there has to be enough places that are willing to accept it to where it's like, yeah, I'll
Right.
carry this Bitcoin because I know I can buy dinner with it. And again, that's what Square might be able to offer.
And I think that's what Square is trying to do here,
Right.
by allowing them to accept that Bitcoin, that, not
Right.
that I have any Bitcoin in my wallet, but if I did,
Hmm.
and, it said Bitcoin accepted here. I don't know about you, James, but I've been seeing a lot more Bitcoin ATMs lately. Have you been seeing it in
I have
your
seen a
in
few.
your market?
Yeah, I've seen a few. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I mean, it used. I mean, we had a guy on our podcast maybe a year or two ago that was installing Bitcoin ATMs,
ATMs. Yep. Yeah. Jonas.
and
Yeah.
and I remember at the time I had seen just one, and it was
Right.
just before we interviewed him. Now, I mean, I walked into the store the other day. It was one of those like cramped, like almost like a
Mm.
bodega. It was so
Right.
cramped
Right.
up, right? The store
Yep.
was, and right in the front, right next to the door, was a regular ATM and a Bitcoin ATM,
Mm. Interesting. Yeah.
which I thought was really interesting. I think so. I think that when with the proliferation of Bitcoin ATMs, it's going
Yeah.
to add to that as well.
Right. But Square could do so much more because again, the core
Oh yeah,
the core constraint or friction right now is not people being able to get Bitcoin, it's people being able to spend Bitcoin.
right,
And
exactly,
do so in a way that's
exactly,
convenient, that's cost effective, and that has some kind of measurable benefit over using their card. And so far,
right,
it's just a novelty. Other than again, if it's really high ticket and you're going to buy a yacht or a Ferrari, it makes sense to do that. But outside of like
right,
for me to go buy pizza or to buy dinner, they're still not for me. It's like, why would I do this versus Apple Pay? Why would I do this versus my credit card? That question still has
exactly.
not been answered yet. And so I think there's a little bit of work left to be done there. But again, Square accepting. I mean, if they do that, and all of a sudden we've got whatever it is, I don't even know how many hundreds of thousands of merchants would instantly be like, oh, now we're accepting Bitcoin. That's going to change
Right.
things. I think that is going to change things.
Yeah,
It's very interesting.
I think that really is going to change
So,
it. But again, remember on the back end, there's still going to be some conversion going on. So there's,
right, there's still a cost.
not going to, yeah, it,
Yeah,
it, 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 it'll be a cost. It might not be as high as interchange, but it'll still be a cost.
right. So maybe there's going to be a cost benefit to the merchant. Is there going to be a cost benefit to to the consumer? There's actually a really interesting deal I'm hoping to do a live event with down the road. I can't say too much about it now, but it's an idea of dual pricing, right? But where
Uh-huh,
crypto
uh-huh.
is the no cost option, pushing people to crypto.
I've been waiting for somebody to do that.
Mhm.
And if anybody does it, it would be you.
Yeah, well, and this
But
is not going
yeah,
to be me necessarily, but this is a company that we're talking
but
about partnering with on the full stack payment side. But they actually created their own
uh-huh.
cryptocurrency, their own kind of coin on top of another platform specifically for a vertical that has a challenge accepting payments. And so it's a very interesting
Uh,
model,
very
and
interesting.
yeah, I think we'll see more and more things like that. So hopefully I'll be able to do that event down the road here and roll that one out. It'd be a lot of fun. But
Love to see it when you do an event
yeah.
about it. Please keep me in the loop.
Definitely will. Well, thank you so much, Patty, again for all the time you spend doing this research and putting this together for us. And thanks for keeping us up to date on Today in Payments.